Good evening, everyone. I'm so delighted to see you here again on the second Vclass today. And hope that in 1 hour we can cover the topics today, that is culture shock and culture adjustment. And hopefully we can have time for the Q&A section. Okay, so before I talk about culture shocks, so just to remind you a little bit about cultures, I think that's on the very first lesson, the first V class, I did mention cultures and the definition of cultures. So just to have a quick look over this part, and then we will turn over to the new part today. So about cultures, there can be thousands of definition of cultures, but look at the first one. I think easier for you to understand. Culture is a shared background. For example, national, ethnic, religious, resulting from a common language and communication style, custom, belief, attitudes, and values. So this definition assumes that those who come from the same culture have a shared background. For example, about the nationalities, about the ethnic or religious origins, and it is the result from the fact that we speak the same language, and we may have the same communication style, and we believe in the same thing, or we value the same things in our life. So that is about culture. So what will happen if we go to a different culture, to a new culture? Let's say I am a Vietnamese person, and one day for a specific reason I go to US. So it means that I will go to a different culture. I will encounter new things. So what will happen? So that is the focus of our lesson today. That is culture shocks and culture adjustment. Okay, so if you are going abroad, and you may find these things about the climate, the food, the language, or the social behavior. For example, you go to a foreign country, let's say UK, and you find that the weather is gray and wet, especially during the winter month. It is very cold outside, and also you feel it's very difficult to get used to such cold weather because you are from a tropical countries. Or about the food, you may find that it is very strange. It may taste different from what you are used to at home, or it just simply may seem bland or heavy compared to what you're used to. And about the language, of course, when you go to a foreign language, you have to fit to their society. So it means that if you want to communicate, you have to use their language, and you feel that you miss your familiar language, which at home would have been part of your everyday environment. You feel that you have to speak English all the time. Sometimes your English is not good enough to communicate, but for some other person, for some other people, even their language is at a very high level, they can communicate fluently, but still they feel they miss their mother tongue, they miss the language that they use at home. Or about the social behavior, you may find that people tend to be very cold or distant, or for example, sometimes very friendly outside, but inside you may feel that they are very superficial. So if you meet all of these things, then it can be the symptoms that you may suffer from culture shock. So why we have to talk about the symptom? Because many people may suffer from culture shock without realizing that. So let's take a look at the definition of culture shock. How culture shock is defined. Culture shock is a common experience when one comes to live in a strange culture, suddenly separated from familiar things, and the newcomers feel like a fish out of water, and does not know what to say, what to do in a new environment. So, just like when I tell you, you have to come to a new culture and you experience all the different things from what you are used to at home. Another definition of culture shock, compare it with mental illness. And true of much mental illness, the victim usually does not know he is afflicted. He finds that he is irritable, depressed, and probably annoyed by the lack of attention shown to him. So many people may suffer from culture shock without realizing that fact. They just feel that they can easily get angry or depressed, and they do not know that it is the symptom of culture shock. They just simply think that they are in the new environment, so everything is not the same. But actually it is the symptom of the culture shock that he is experiencing. Or it is the response that an individual may have in a new country. The person may feel confused and disoriented, and every aspect of daily life may be difficult. You don't know, disoriented, just like you don't know what to do, or you don't know what to say. Another and also the last definition that I want to introduce to you, this is presented by Dr. Nguyễn Quang, in which he say that culture shock is a strong feeling of discomfort, anxiety, fear, disorientation, insecurity, or confusion, which a person may experience when finding himself or herself in a new culture. So that is the definition of culture shock. So let's take a look at the symptom of culture shock. This one will be easier for you to follow, because you may see that if you have about, I think, up to 5 symptoms here, then it is very much likely that it is the culture shock that you are experiencing. The first symptom is that you may feel very angry over minor inconveniences, and you may feel irritable, or you withdraw from people who are different from you. For example, you study in a class which has students coming from different parts of the world, an international environment. However, you may withdraw from people who are different from you. You try to look for other Vietnamese people and make friends with them, of course, and you don't want to make friends with those who come from, who are outsider, let's say from UK, from US, or from Africa, or so on. So that is a withdrawal feeling. And then you may feel extremely homesick. Sometimes the homesickness, many people say that it is very common things that happen when you are away. But actually it is also a symptom of culture shock. And also sudden intense feeling of loyalty to your own culture. Maybe at your home, in your home country, if you see some signal which shows which is the symbol of Vietnam, it doesn't make much sense if you are in your own country. But if you are in a foreign country and you see somebody in the traditional costume of Vietnam, let's say áo dài, for example, so you may feel that you suddenly have an intense feeling of loyalty. Number 6, I think it's quite interesting. You may overeating, or you may lose appetite. So that's why when somebody who come to a foreign country, you may find that they suddenly become they may suddenly gain a lot of weight, or other people may lose weight, and you may simply think that they are not used to the new food, the food in that country, so they cannot eat such thing. But actually, even very delicious meal, you don't have the feeling for, so that can also be a symptom of culture shock. You may lose your appetite, and in other case, you may eat a lot. You may feel bored most of the time, and you may feel a need for excessive sleep. At first, it can be the result of jet lag, the time zone. You're not used to the new time zone in the new country, but for over a week or 2 weeks, you still feel that you have an excessive need for sleep. So it is also culture shock. You may feel headache, or you may have an upset stomach. You may feel that small pain can become really hurtful. Or you may, in a more serious level, you may feel depressed, or you may fall into the depression state. And you may lose your ability to work or to study effectively. Before you come to US to study, for example, you may feel that you will put all your efforts on your study and nothing can interfere. But then when you come to US, even in a perfect environment for study, you have the library, you have a modern library, you have all the equipment which support your study process, but you feel that you cannot study effectively like when you're at home, even in a much lower, much less modern environment. Sometimes you may cry unexplainably, or you may fall into the marital or relationships stress. You may make new friends, but it is not as you expect. So even you have new friends, they are not close enough, and for you to share things. Or yes, you may fall into a marital stress. For example, you are separated from your family, your husband, your children at home. And number 16, many people may never think that it is a symptom of culture shock, but actually, for example, at home, you are kind of untidy, or you may not be a person who is perfectly clean, but when you go abroad, you may have you may develop exaggerated cleanliness. You may clean your rooms many times in a day, and you feel obsessed about cleanliness. So it can also be a symptom of culture shock. And you feel sick much of the time. You feel that you have no energy to do things, to study or to work. So if you find that you have about 5 symptoms among all of the symptoms here, so think about the fact that you may be suffering from culture shock. Okay, so then, if we know that what will happen, or what we are going to do, what we are going to solve the problem, if we know that we are suffering from culture shock, so let me introduce to you the WH pattern of cultural adjustment to see where culture shock lies, and then how to adjust yourself in order to overcome the culture shock. So if you look at the W pattern here, so you will see that a person who suffers from culture shock and overcomes the feeling of culture shock will go through 5 stages. The very first one, when you first come to a new country, when you first in contact with a new culture, we call it the honeymoon period. And you can see that this is the highest, this is the stage where you feel up in the sky. It it is signified by the highest position in this pattern. That is the honeymoon period. This is the stage when you feel like you are in the honeymoon. That is, you are experiencing new things and you feel very, very excited about that. So that is the honeymoon period. And then after a time, you can see that we have two axes. One is adjustment and the other is time. And then when times pass by, you go down from the honeymoon period to the culture shock stage. So this is the lowest levels that you go down to. This is the time when you feel that you are really, really down. And this is the culture shock. When you find that things are not the same and it is very, very difficult to fit into the new society. And then number 3, after the culture shock stage, then we will come to the initial adjustment. This is the time you adjust yourself and you initially get used to the new things. For example, when you come to US, after the honeymoon period, you come to the culture shock. When you feel that everything is difficult, you find it difficult to find a way to school. For example, you live in a dormitory. For the first few weeks, you go to class late every day. You get confused with you get confused with the timetable. You have to run from this class to another class. And then you also get lost with the transportation, the internal transportation, even just because it may be a very, very big university, and from the dormitory to the classroom, it may take you some time. So the initial adjustment is the time you get used to the everyday life. You get used to all aspects in the everyday life. That is the time, for example, you already know how the bus system works within the campus, in the campus. You know which bus you need to catch if you want to go to physics class, or which one you should catch if you go to educational class, for example. And also you know how to you know where to go in order to buy the basic things for your everyday life. You know which supermarket is cheaper, for example. So that is the initial adjustment. At this level, you may develop more relationships. Like you may have more friends. You may find other Vietnamese people around you. You may have more friends, international friends as well. So that is the initial adjustment. And then you can see that number 4. If number 3, the initial adjustment, our feeling or our emotion, it goes up. So you may think that it should go up again. However, for number 4, things go down once again. That is the depression. So why we go down to the depression state even when we have initially adjust ourselves to the everyday aspect in life? That is because when you get used to the everyday things, the everyday aspect for everyday life, then our emotion and our feeling for what we have to separate it from may develop. For example, at this level, you may feel that you miss your friends at home, you miss your family, you miss the outgoing with your friends at home. At weekends, when you are in your home country, you may hang out with your friends, you may go out for coffee, and you may hang out the whole days long. But then here, you have no choice for the weekend. For example, still you have to go to the library. You have no place to go other than that. So again, you may feel depressed. So that go to number 4. But if you look at number 4, we may have the comparison that the depression in number 4 is not as low as culture shock in number 2. Because at this level, you have You have get over to the everyday difficulty, and now it is the inner emotion within you. After depression, then if you stay longer, then you will come to another stage, that is acceptance and integration. So at this level, you accept the new thing, the new culture, and you integrate yourself with the new environment. Now you know how to live in harmony with people around you. But if you compare number 5 with number 1, it is also, or with number 3, going up higher than number 3 but lower than number 4. It means that you can never have the feeling like the first time you set your foot on the new land. You can never have such a feeling again. Okay, so this is the WS pattern of culture adjustment. You will go through 5 stages, from the honeymoon to the culture shock, to the initial adjustment, to the depression, and finally that is acceptance and integration. Okay, so just a quick exercise so that to check your understanding of the WS pattern of culture adjustment. Look at the question here and choose the best option, A, B, C, or D. The first one, how does a person view the new culture in the first state of culture shock? Who have the answer? First, everyone is watching me. B, wow, everything is different. C, I want to go home. And D, I see nothing different. And remember that the first state of culture shock is the honeymoon period, in which you are up in the sky. You are in a very high mood. So, which one best describes the feeling of a person in the first stage? Anyone has the answer? Okay, so the first stage, the honeymoon. So it should be B. Wow, everything is different. So you see everything is, you see that things are different. However, in a very exciting mood. So that's why it has, wow, everything is different. Number 2, what is the common symptom of the second state of culture shock? The second stage of culture shock is culture shock itself. You go to a very low mood. So which one best describes the second stage? A, people tend to withdraw from society. People try to integrate into the host culture. C, people criticize the host culture and people. And D, people praise the host culture and people. So for this one, I think it is A. That is, people tend to withdraw from society. At this stage, you go to a very low level. Your emotion go down and to a very low level. And at this stage, you tend to withdraw from society. After the first stage, that is the honeymoon, very exciting stage, then you go to number 2, that is the culture shock. That is A. And in the third state of culture shock, the culture adjustment, number 3, you see that, come back to number 3, step number 3, that is the initial adjustment, in which you familiarize yourself with everyday aspect in a new culture. So how will you, what is the best word? The humor stage, the hunting stage, the homeless stage, or the home stage? The third one is the initial adjustment. So which one should be the best option? This is not the stage where you feel that it is like home. But it should be the hunting stage, in which you are searching for new things, and you are also you have get over the difficulty, the basic difficulty, and you are now searching for, you're discovering the new culture. And then for the fourth stage, actually this one should be the final stage. So which statement best describe it? I'm glad to be returning to my own country. Or these people love their families and home. C, I really enjoy living among people here. Or D, I can hardly stand the people here. The final stage, this is the stage, we call this acceptance and integration. So at this stage, that should be C. I really enjoy living among people here, because you have come to the acceptance and integration level. It means you accept the new culture, you accept the bad things and the good things, and you also integrate yourself into the new environment. So it means you are happy about the environment. So the statement, I really enjoy living among people here, stand for the acceptance and integration level. Okay, and then now we will be talking to some aspect which may cause culture shocks when you come to a new environment. You may think that it is about the language or about the food. That things may cause culture shock, yes, but that is not as serious as the bottom of. If you remember about the theory about the iceberg culture, then, for example, food or appearance or language, they are only in the tip of the iceberg, but the things that lie in the bottom of the iceberg are usually the one which called culture shock. So let's look at the first thing, that is value. Different value may cause culture shock. For example, the action of turning down or accepting a compliment. In our culture, let's take one example in Vietnam. When we receive a compliment, for example, someone may give you a compliment, wow, you look beautiful today. You have a very beautiful outfit today, for example. And a Vietnamese person, when he receives such a compliment, many people may turn it down by saying, oh no, it is not beautiful at all, or I'm just normal as any other days. So turning down a compliment in Vietnam may show that you are very modest and you don't want to put yourself in a high position, or you don't want to receive such, or in other words, turning down a compliment in Vietnam just means that you are trying to show you are very modest. However, a common thing in English culture is that when you receive a compliment, normally you will say thank you. So when you say an American person, for example, if somebody say, wow, you look so beautiful today, so the normal response will be thank you, or thank you a lot, thanks a lot. So you can see that if you turning down a compliment from an American person, that may cause culture shock, because normally that American person expect that you will say thank you or something similar. However, when an American person say that you look beautiful today, and you say, oh no, I'm not beautiful at all. So you are trying to show that you're modest, but he may not figure out the message that underlies your statement. He may feel at loss or feel very confused why this person is turning down my compliment. Okay, so that is one example of turning down or accepting a compliment that may lead to culture shock. Or for example, the statement, she is really ambitious, for a Vietnamese person. If somebody say that she is really ambitious, so what is your feeling toward that woman? Is this a compliment? She's really ambitious? Or you consider whether you consider it as positive, neutral, or negative? So I think that many Vietnamese people may see this one as a neutral, either neutral or negative statement. If the word ambitious is used, like in Vietnamese we say, cô ấy rất là tham vọng. So the word tham vọng or ambitious in Vietnamese imply something not really, really good. Also, ambitious can be good in many situations. But if somebody say that she is really ambitious, so we should consider it. So in Vietnam, mostly we consider it negative. However, in American culture, it mostly means positive or neutral. So the way people from these two cultures may perceive this statement in two different ways. Or another one, he is really conservative. The word conservative here, in British culture, it means positive. It can mean positive or it can mean negative, depending on the situation. In the situation that a person say you're conservative means that you are very strict and it is very hard to move you away from your decision, then it can be very good. But in Vietnam, mostly it means negative. So in British culture, either positive or negative depending on the situation. But in Vietnamese culture, when we say anh ấy rất là bảo thủ, then the word conservative almost always means negative. Or another example is about giving compliment to small baby. When you come to visit small baby or say, let's say newborn baby, in English culture, I mean in English speaking country, people may use very, very nice words to the baby. For example, he looks so cute, he's so lovely or she's so lovely, the baby is so pretty, for example. However, in Vietnamese culture, if they bring the same thing in Vietnamese culture, sometimes people may not feel happy to receive it. Because in Vietnam, it is the custom that we do not use too many beautiful words for a small baby. We may use the contrary things like, I hate this baby, or he looks so hateful. Or in Vietnamese, we may say, trông nó thật là dễ ghét. For example, that is the normal thing we often say to a newborn baby. And we may avoid using beautiful words because we may from the belief that from the old belief that if we compliment, we give nice compliment to the baby, the evil will take it away, or the baby will cry all night after that. So you can see that if an American person come to Vietnam, come to a Vietnamese family, and he want to say nice thing to the baby, and he may think that people will like it, then he may have to take it back. Or a different perception can also lead to misunderstanding. For example, the perception of leaving the nest. For example, in US, it means that, for example, when you reach 18, when a boy or a girl is 18 years old, he or she may decide to leave the nest, it means to leave the family. So where would they go? They may choose to live outside with their friend, or at that age, if they go to university, they may move to the dormitory, or they may rent a home outside to live with their friends. In Vietnam, for example, if you are from a remote province and you go to the city center to study, you may also have to leave the nest. It means you have to leave your family. However, it is only when your family is far away from the city center, from the university. But usually, for example, in Hanoi, those who have family in Hanoi, it means that, who are living in Hanoi. So normally they will not leave the family or move out the family to live with their friend. Only someone from remote province. But it is very common things for Americans teenager to leave the nest when they reach the right age, that is 18. Or for example, the saying, "You are such a lucky dog." This one is either positive or neutral in Anglicist culture. It is just an informal way to say that you are lucky. However, if you translate word by word this sentence for a Vietnamese person, then that person may get angry because dog is not an animal that is normally compared to human being. Or the statement, "You look sexy today." You look sexy today. Normally it means positive in Anglicist culture. It is just a compliment to a woman. However, if a Vietnamese girl receives this compliment, she may get confused and even feels that if it is a man who gives this compliment, the girl may become, careful about the man's next time, because it is related. It is something that related to gender attractiveness. The communication style can also lead to miscommunication. For example, one example is student inviting their teacher to a dinner party for the celebration of Teacher Day. So the way they give compliments can be different in different culture. In Vietnam, they may give very formal invitation for a teacher, and the way they hold a party, if it has the presence of the teacher, the party can also be very formal, tend to be a formal one. However, let's say in America, if the teacher receives an invitation from the student for the Teacher's Day, it can be an informal letter, and when they go to a party, they can also act as their student. So they mingle, and they may, in class they can be very formal, but outside when they go to a party with their student, they tend to be, very informal. Custom and tradition are also things that may lead to culture shock. For example, the custom of offering food to the guests in Vietnam. So it is a signal to show hospitality in Vietnamese culture. However, American person, if they are offered food during the meal, they may have the feelings that they are a baby being fed. So this is to show you that during a meal, you are a Vietnamese person and you want to offer the food to the guests to show that you are very hospitable. But make sure that you don't treat your guests like a baby, because your guests may not feel comfortable at all. Or the action of bitter chewing in Vietnamese, especially in the countryside in the past. So bitter chewing is very common, and old people may chew bitters many times during the day, and after that, what they throw out is horrifying to Anglicists because it looked like blood. So for Vietnamese people, we may be familiar with that image, but for Anglicist people, they may feel horrified because they don't know what it is, and it just looks like you are vomiting blood. Okay. The habits also lead to misunderstanding or miscommunication. For example, the practice of leg trembling. You're sitting with your friend, you're talking with them, and you tremble your leg all the time. This one is tolerable practice in Vietnam, but this may be considered very impolite in many European countries. and also in US as well. Or the action of covering mouth while talking. This one is sometimes tolerable, but I think nowadays in a modern society, we also do not encourage mouth covering while talking. But if somebody's performed that action, so if we are Vietnamese person, then we may tolerate, we may consider it okay. But this is a taboo in Anglicist culture, so make sure that you do not perform this action if you are talking to Anglicist people. So that leads to taboo in some culture. What you can do in one culture, you cannot do in the other one. We do not say that it is right or wrong, but we just say that cultures are different. So one action may be considered right in one culture, is not completely right in another one. So you should be careful about that. For example, you look sexy today, it is very common or it is quite ordinary in Anglicist culture. But sometimes in Vietnam, Vietnamese girl or Vietnamese women may feel embarrassed when they receive such a compliment. Or wearing white ribbon in sports, this one is very common. However, it is a taboo in some places, not everywhere. And also, I think in the past, people may not have maybe it is not developed enough to have for the Western sport to come to Vietnam, so people may not have such habit. But nowadays, if somebody play tennis, for example, they may wear white ribbon even in Vietnam, so it is more common. But long before in the past, it can be a taboo in Vietnamese culture because it signifies, it is a signal of a funeral. For example, you are in your family, somebody is dead, so the white ribbon is a signal to show that you are that things happen. So in a nutshell, what is the purpose of talking about culture shock and talking about culture adjustment? Because finally, what our aim is to become a good cross-cultural conversationalist. In our own culture, we can be a very good conversationalist. We can talk fluently, and we may, communicate effectively with other Vietnamese people. But to do so with somebody who comes from a different culture, so we need some other thing. So let's look at the characteristic of a good cross-cultural conversationalist. The first one, you should be well aware of cross-cultural differences and potential area for culture shock. Just like what I have just tell you, the topic, the relationship, roles, value, belief, perception, custom, tradition, taboo, or communication style. You should know what is a taboo in a Western country, or a Western person who come to Vietnam should also know what is a taboo in Vietnam in order to avoid that. Being well aware that all cultures are equal but different. That is to say that all cultures are equal. There is no right or wrong. In a different culture, there is only differences. And you should be objective. When you judge something or somebody from another culture, you should be objective. Put yourself in their position so that you can understand why they do so. And you should also be constructively critical and receptive to the new and the unknown. Okay. What you don't know, or what are the new things or the unknown things, you should have a critical and receptive reaction. And also you should be patient. For the first time you are in contact with somebody from a different culture, they behave totally different from you. You cannot understand why he is behaving so. So you should be patient. Also be tolerant. because when you don't know why, when you don't know the reason why they behave so, you should be tolerant. You should look for the answer. You look for the reason before you criticize them. And you should also be sensitive, be observative. People say, when in Rome, do like the Roman do. That is observative. You should observe people around you. For example, when you say that, I don't know what to do, what to say, so you should observative. You should be observative. Observe people around you, and then you know what to do and what to say. Having quality information, that is the what, and having the good conveyance of idea, attitudes, and feeling, that is the how. You should have quality information, and you should have a good way to convey your idea. Never afraid of asking questions. However, you should ask good questions. It is very hard to say what kind of question is considered good. This one is very hard to say. But if you are sensitive enough, you should know what you should ask and what you shouldn't ask. For example, for European people, they do not like personal questions. So that is the question you should avoid. In Vietnam, you can ask personal questions, and it is also a way to show that I care about you. I may ask you about your family, about your marital status. I may ask about some very personal thing for the first time or the second time we meet, and we try, and other people may interpret it as that the word as you are very caring about them, but personal question is not a good way in European country. Listen to others actively and with open mind. You should be, receptive to the new thing. That is also the same thing as receptive to the new thing. Other people are just different from you. It doesn't mean that they are wrong. So you should listen with open mind. You should avoid ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, it means that you only consider your culture, your nation is the best or is the most intelligent. So you should avoid that. Other cultures are equal. Also avoid overgeneralization or stereotype. For example, you meet someone in a new culture. You may meet someone who are, unfriendly, and you come to the conclusion that everyone else from that culture, they are also unfriendly, and you withdraw from those people. You don't want to make friends with other people from that culture just because of one situation. So that is overgeneralization. And you also should avoid passive behavior or aggressive behavior. And you should always give compliment. I think that people are the same. We always want to hear nice things. So you shouldn't, you should always give compliment, however, in a sincere way. So those are the characteristics of a good conversationalist. So try to keep the list and try to, practice day by day, so that when you master when you have all this thing here, you will become a very good conversationalist, cross-culture conversationalist. Okay, now let's look over to the situation. In this situation, we will see that there is culture shocks that happening here. So look at the first situation and look over the situation and then answer the two questions that follow. Okay, you may have 1 minute to look over it. Okay, the situation is Mary is an English teacher in an adult class in UK, And the teacher Mary was speaking to Hoa, one of her Vietnamese students. And she is giving a compliment. Hoa, I'm very happy with your work. Your English is really improving. And then Hoa looked down and said, oh no, I'm not a good student. My English is not very good. So you see that? This is the usual reaction of a Vietnamese person. That is turning down a compliment. And in turning down the compliments here, when her teacher thought that Hoa was making good progress and she really wanted to compliment the student, then she again said to Hoa, but you are a good student and you are making excellent progress. You should be proud of your work. Again, Hoa responded to this remark by saying, no, you are a very good teacher, but I'm not a good student. So Mary, the teacher, didn't know what to say. So she decided not to give Hoa any more compliment. She may feel very confused. And I think that to some extent, she feel, disappointed. Because she want to make Hoa proud of her work. And she want to say nice thing to Hoa. And she expect, what she expect from Hoa is an ordinary response just like any other English people. That is a thank you. And she want to praise Hoa, actually. But then Hoa refused it by saying that I'm not a good student the second time. So, number one, why did Hoa look down when the teacher complimented her? A, she was ashamed at her work. B, she was embarrassed. C, she was trying to show respect for the student. Or D, she didn't like the teacher. Anyone have the answer? In this case, as I told you before, turning down a compliment in Vietnamese culture, it is just a way to show that you're modest. So in this one, it can be, the answer is C. She was trying to show respect for the teacher, and also it can be also be B. The answer here are open. You can choose one or even more than one option. So in this case, it can be B or C. Sometimes people may feel embarrassed because of this compliment, and they feel very confused or very embarrassed, so they may refuse it, or in Vietnamese culture, it is also a way to show that you're modest and you want to show respect to the other person. So B or C. So actually, turning down a compliment in Vietnamese culture, it is positive. And Hoa doesn't mean anything but showing respect to the teacher. However, the teacher doesn't understand it in that way. And actually, Mary decided not to give Hoa any more compliment because A, she decided that Hoa is not a good student, or Hoa's behavior was disrespectful, or Hoa didn't seem to be pleased with the compliment, or she expected Hoa to say something like thank you. So in this case, the answer is D. Because normally for an Anglicist person, when they give a compliment, the ordinary response should be thank you. So the teacher expects something like that. But actually, her student response was not going along the common way. So that's why she's decided not to give any more compliment. So you can see that this is one situation of culture shock. You want to show respect to your teacher, but actually your teacher doesn't understand it that way. And next time even you make progress, she will not give you any more compliment. So next time you may feel very disappointed because you are really improving, but you receive no compliment. So you are disappointed. But your teacher decide not to give you compliment because the other time you already refused it. Another one. Okay, let me look at. Okay, look at situation 2. I will explain a little bit about time concept. Lisa asked you to come over to her house in the evening for dinner and a movie. She told you to come over at around 7 p.m. So what time should you arrive? At any time that evening. 7, 8, or 9. It doesn't make it makes no difference. 10 or 15 minutes before 7 p.m. 10 or 15 minutes after, or exactly at 7 p.m. So the situation is in Lisa is an international one of your American friends, and she invites you to her home for dinner, and you are a Vietnamese student. So what time you should arrive? Yes, the correct answer is 2 or 4. That means you can come before 7 p.m. or exactly at 7. Because, for Vietnamese people, coming late, 10 or 15 minutes is not something too serious. And you can do that, normally you can do that with other Vietnamese people. They are willing to wait for you because in Vietnamese culture, the time concept is a little bit, we call it rubber time. It can expand a little bit. However, when you go to a new culture, not only in American culture, US American, in other culture as well, but if the relationship is not close enough, I think it is bad that you should arrive a little bit earlier or at least on time. Okay, so I have gone through the lecture today that is about culture shock and the culture adjustment. For the culture adjustment, I have introduced the WS pattern of culture adjustment, in which we will go through 5 stages. So if you have any question for now, you can ask me. You can text me on the screen here, and I'm willing to answer all of them. Even if you don't have any question now, you can think about that. You can have a look at the lecture again at home, and you can ask me any question after that. Okay, so I think that in just one hour, maybe you're not really very deep into the lesson. So take a look again at the lecture at home, and any question are welcome through email, or you can call me, or you can text me, or you can email me if you have anything unclear about the lecture and also about other lesson in your textbook. Okay, thank you for joining my Vclass today, and hope that you have a good time. Thank you.